Elena Martinez stared at the embossed invitation in her hands, feeling the weight of expensive cardstock between her fingers. Dinner at Castellano's, the kind of restaurant where reservations required a 3-month wait and connections most people didn't have. "They're going to adore you," Marcus said from the driver's seat of his Mercedes, that confident smile spreading across his face. "My family's been dying to meet you." Elena had been dating Marcus Wellington for 2 years. 2 years of carefully maintained secrets, of being Elena the graphic designer instead of Elena the tech mogul. 2 years of letting him believe she struggled with rent while her investment portfolio quietly grew past 8 figures. She'd learned her lesson the hard way. Her previous relationship had imploded the moment her ex discovered her net worth. Suddenly, every conversation became about our money and our future plans that coincidentally required her capital. The one before that had proposed within a week of finding out about her inheritance, presenting a ring and a detailed prenup he'd clearly had his lawyer draft in advance. So when she met Marcus at that community art class, where she volunteered teaching digital design to teens, she made a choice. She would be ordinary, relatable, someone who saved up for nice dinners and shop sales at Target. Marcus had fallen for that woman. He insisted on paying for everything, proud to provide for someone he thought was making ends meet on a modest freelancer's income. Those weekend trips to bed and breakfasts, the surprise flowers, even helping her upgrade her apartment with furniture he thought she couldn't afford, he did it all because he wanted to take care of her. And Elena had loved feeling cared for without the shadow of her money hanging over everything. But meeting his family meant entering their world. Old Connecticut money. The kind of wealth that came with expectations, judgments, and tests designed to separate the worthy from the social climbers. Elena knew that world intimately. She'd grown up adjacent to it before her aunt's tech patents made her independently wealthy at 24. She understood their codes, their subtle cruelties, their conviction that breeding mattered more than bank accounts. She decided to give them exactly what they expected to see. That afternoon, Elena went shopping, but not at her usual boutiques. She visited discount stores and outlet malls, carefully selecting pieces that screamed, trying too hard on a budget. A navy dress in cheap fabric that bunched wrong. Shoes that looked like they'd pinch. A handbag from a thrift store with a broken clasp she deliberately left unrepaired. Standing in her bathroom that evening, Elena barely recognized herself. Gone was the woman who'd negotiated a $50 million merger last month. In her place stood someone nervous, uncertain, desperate to impress. Perfect. Marcus arrived at 7 sharp, his expression flickering when he saw her outfit. "You look lovely," he said, though she caught the slight hesitation. He was too kind to mention that she looked underdressed for Castellano's, but she saw him glance at her shoes twice during the drive. "Tell me again about your family," Elena prompted, though she'd memorized every detail from his previous descriptions. "Mother, Catherine, runs the Wellington Foundation. Father, James, is semi-retired from his law practice. My brother Andrew is a surgeon, married to Vanessa who does something in finance." Marcus drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. "They can be intense. But they'll warm up once they know you." The restaurant was exactly as Elena remembered from her last visit 6 months ago, when she'd met with Antonio Castellano to discuss expanding his restaurant group and had ended up investing $3 million in the venture. Crystal chandeliers, mahogany panels, waiters in white jackets moving with choreographed precision. The maitre d' Paolo recognized her immediately but played his role flawlessly. "Mr. Wellington, your party is waiting." They were led to a corner table where 3 impeccably dressed people sat in judgment. Catherine Wellington had silver blonde hair styled perfectly, wearing what Elena recognized as this season's Armani. James was distinguished in his navy blazer. Vanessa looked like she'd stepped from a society magazine, every detail calculated for maximum impact. All 3 sets of eyes assessed Elena's appearance, and she watched their expressions shift from polite interest to barely concealed disappointment. "You must be Elena," Catherine said, extending a hand with flawless manicure. "Marcus has told us so much about you." Elena slipped into character immediately, letting her voice rise with nervous energy. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. This place is amazing. I've never been anywhere so fancy." She widened her eyes as she looked around, playing up her supposed awe. The family exchanged glances they thought she didn't notice. Vanessa's lips twitched with what might have been amusement or disdain. "Castellano's is one of our regular spots," Andrew said smoothly. "We thought it would be nice for a special occasion." Marcus pulled out Elena's chair and she made a small production of being impressed. "Such a gentleman. My friends would never believe how lucky I am." She caught Catherine's slight wince at her volume. As they settled in, the sommelier appeared with the wine list. Catherine ordered without consulting Elena, selecting a bottle that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "This is an exceptional vintage," Catherine said as the wine was poured. "Very refined. Perhaps a bit sophisticated for someone not accustomed to fine wines." Elena sipped carefully, pretending to be intimidated. "It's very nice. Much fancier than the stuff I usually get at the grocery store." Vanessa laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "What do you usually drink?" "Oh, you know, whatever's on sale. $2 chuck, mostly." Elena manufactured embarrassment. "Marcus keeps trying to educate my palate, but I think I'm a lost cause." Marcus squeezed her hand supportively, clearly uncomfortable but unsure how to intervene. Elena could see the conflict in his eyes, loyalty to family versus protection of her feelings. James cleared his throat. "Marcus mentioned you work in graphic design?" "I do freelance work, mostly," Elena said quickly. "Small business logos, social media graphics, that kind of thing. It's not glamorous like Marcus's work in finance, but it pays the bills." She paused meaningfully. "Most of them, anyway." The implication hung in the air, that Marcus was essentially supporting her modest lifestyle. Catherine's smile grew more patronizing by the second. When their appetizers arrived, Elena deliberately reached for the wrong fork, glancing at Marcus for guidance. Vanessa noticed immediately. "The smaller fork is for the salad," she said with exaggerated patience, as if instructing a child. "Thank you." Elena breathed gratefully. "I never know these things. My family didn't really do formal dinners." The conversation turned to topics clearly designed to highlight differences: exotic vacations, charity galas, connections to prominent families. Elena played her part perfectly, asking naive questions and appearing impressed by their worldliness. Halfway through dinner, Catherine made her move. "Elena, dear, Marcus tells us you've been dating for 2 years. That's quite serious." "It feels serious to me," Elena replied, gazing at Marcus adoringly. "I never thought someone like him would be interested in someone like me." "Someone like you?" James prompted. Elena gestured vaguely at herself. "You know, ordinary. Marcus could have anyone. Someone from a good family, someone with the right connections." She lowered her voice. "Sometimes I worry I'm holding him back." Vanessa pounced. "What do you mean?" "Well," Elena bit her lip, appearing to struggle, "Marcus has all these important work events with dress codes and donation expectations. It's all so expensive. He's always offering to help, but I could never accept that much from him." Catherine's expression shifted to something between pity and calculation. "That must be difficult for you both." "I try not to let it bother me," Elena said bravely. "Marcus says love is more important than money. I have to trust him on that, even if his colleagues sometimes look at me like I don't belong." The family exchanged meaningful glances. Elena could practically see the gears turning. Poor Marcus, trapped by sentiment with someone who would never fit their world. James leaned back in his chair. "Marcus has always been too generous for his own good." The warning was clear, but before Marcus could respond, Elena jumped in with wide-eyed gratitude. "He really is the most generous person I've ever met. I don't know what I did to deserve him." The self-deprecation seemed to satisfy them, confirming their assumptions about the relationship hierarchy. As dessert menus arrived, Catherine prepared to strike. "Elena, dear, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I feel I should mention something." Marcus tensed. "Mother." Antonio's expression cooled slightly. "Is that so?" Elena could feel the tension building like electricity before a storm. Antonio was giving her the opportunity to control this revelation, and she intended to make the most of it. "I don't think we've been formally introduced," Elena said carefully. "Though you do seem familiar." Antonio smiled slowly. "Perhaps you've seen my photograph in the business section. I've been featured recently in articles about our expansion." Marcus looked confused. "Expansion?" "Oh yes," Antonio said, his eyes never leaving Elena's. "Castellanos has been expanding quite aggressively this year. 3 new locations, thanks to some very generous investors who believe in our vision." Catherine's smile was becoming strained. "How wonderful. It's always nice when people support local businesses." "Indeed," Antonio agreed, "though I must say, some of our investors have been far more generous than others. In fact, our primary investor made it possible for us to survive the pandemic and come back stronger than ever." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. "That's quite a success story." Antonio nodded gravely. "This person didn't just provide capital. They provided guidance, connections, and most importantly, trust when banks were unwilling to take risks." Elena could see Marcus trying to piece together why Antonio was sharing so much detail. Catherine was clearly growing impatient. Well, that's lovely, she said dismissively. Elena, dear, perhaps we should order dessert and let Mr. Castellano return to his other guests. Antonio's smile turned razor sharp. Actually, Mrs. Wellington, I was hoping to have a private word with Miss Martinez, if that would be acceptable. The entire table went silent. You see, Antonio continued conversationally, I make it a point to personally thank our most important investors when they honor us with their presence. The words hit the table like a bomb. Marcus's face went through a fascinating progression: confusion, realization, shock, and finally something that looked like pride mixed with awe. Catherine's mouth actually fell open. Vanessa made a strangled sound. James just stared. I'm sorry, Catherine said weakly. Did you say investor? Antonio's smile was pure theater. Oh yes. Miss Martinez here is responsible for the investment that kept Castellano's doors open during our darkest hour. Without her faith in our vision, none of this, he gestured around the elegant restaurant, would exist today. Elena stood slowly, her cheap polyester dress suddenly feeling like armor. Thank you for your discretion, Antonio. I wasn't sure you'd recognize me without my usual business attire. Marcus rose beside her, his expression a mixture of amazement and something deeper. Elena, what's happening here? She turned to face the table of people who had spent the evening trying to convince her she wasn't good enough. Her voice was calm, steady, and completely different from the nervous girl who'd sat down 3 hours earlier. What's happening, Marcus, is that your family has spent the entire evening trying to convince me I don't belong in your world. She paused, letting her eyes move from Catherine to Vanessa to James. The irony is quite delicious, actually. Catherine found her voice. I don't understand. No, Elena agreed pleasantly. You really don't. She turned to Antonio. Would you mind clarifying for them exactly what my investment in Castellano's entails? Antonio was clearly enjoying himself. Miss Martinez owns 35% of the Castellano restaurant group, including all 4 locations in our catering division. She's also the primary stakeholder in our real estate holdings. He paused dramatically. In layman's terms, she's my business partner. The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa was the first to recover. But you said you did freelance graphic design. Elena smiled. I do. I own Martinez Digital Solutions and Investment Group. We specialize in helping small businesses expand through strategic partnerships and targeted growth campaigns. Marcus was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Elena, why didn't you tell me? She reached for his hand, and for the first time all evening her smile was completely genuine. Because I needed to know that you loved me for who I am, not what I have. And tonight proved that you do. She turned back to his family, who were still sitting in stunned silence. As for the rest of you, let me be clear about something. Marcus is an incredible man who deserves a family that supports him unconditionally. What he got instead was a family so concerned with status that you were willing to break his heart to maintain your social standing. Catherine's face had gone pale. Elena, we had no idea. No, Elena interrupted firmly. You had no idea because you made assumptions based on superficial appearances. You saw a cheap dress and decided I was inferior. You heard freelance and dismissed my intelligence. You assumed financial dependence and treated me like a gold digger. Antonio cleared his throat. Perhaps I should mention that Miss Martinez graduated summa cum laude from MIT with degrees in computer science and business, and built her company from the ground up after her aunt left her seed capital from tech patents. James was beginning to look physically ill. Elena, we sincerely apologize. We clearly misjudged. You didn't misjudge anything, Elena said calmly. You revealed exactly who you are. People who measure worth by bank accounts and pedigree. People who think kindness and love are secondary to social status. Marcus squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would. Marcus, you have nothing to apologize for. You defended me all evening. You were horrified by their behavior. She looked around the table one more time. The question now is whether you want to build a life with someone whose family will always see me as beneath them, or whether you're ready to establish some serious boundaries. Catherine was practically trembling. Of course we want to build a relationship with you. We simply. No, Elena said firmly. That ship has sailed. You've shown me who you are when you think someone is powerless. That's not something I'm interested in forgetting. Antonio stepped forward. Miss Martinez, your table is ready in the private dining room whenever you'd like to continue your evening in more comfortable surroundings. Elena looked at Marcus. What do you say? Ready to start fresh? He stood, pulling her close. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. As they walked away from the table, Elena heard Vanessa whisper urgently to Catherine. Do you realize what we've just done? Yes, Elena thought with satisfaction. They were beginning to understand exactly what they'd done. And more importantly, they were learning that respect isn't something you can withdraw and restore at will. The private dining room at Castellano's was everything the main restaurant floor was not: intimate, quiet, and blissfully free of judgmental family members. Marcus and Elena sat across from each other at a small table near the window, the city lights twinkling below them like fallen stars. For several long minutes, neither spoke. Marcus kept looking at her as if seeing her for the first time, which in a way, he was. 8 figures, he finally said. It wasn't a question. Give or take, Elena confirmed, sipping the wine Antonio had sent over, a vintage she knew cost more than most people's monthly salaries. My Aunt Rosario held several software patents. When she passed, she left everything to me with one condition: that I use the money to build something meaningful rather than just sitting on it. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. Martinez Digital Solutions started 7 years ago with 3 clients and a laptop. Now we have 42 employees, offices in 3 cities, and a portfolio of over 100 businesses we've helped scale. Elena set down her wine glass. I'm good at seeing potential where others see risk. Antonio was drowning in debt when I approached him. Everyone else saw a restaurant that couldn't survive. I saw an entrepreneur who needed a partner, not a loan shark. And the cheap dress? The wrong fork? All of it was a test, Elena finished. I wanted to see who your family really was when they thought they had all the power. When they believed I had nothing to offer except my relationship with you. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing. How many times have you done this? Tested people? Twice before. Both times, my previous partners failed spectacularly. Elena met his eyes. You didn't. You were uncomfortable all evening. You tried to defend me. You were clearly torn between loyalty to family and protecting me, but you never once treated me like I deserved their contempt. I can't believe they. Marcus stopped, running a hand through his hair. Actually, I can believe it. I just didn't want to see it so clearly. Old money families are terrified of losing status, Elena said softly. They've built entire identities around who they are, where they came from, who they know. Anyone who threatens that carefully constructed image becomes an enemy. But you're not from nothing. Your aunt. New money, Elena interrupted. Tech money, no less. To people like your family, that's almost worse than being broke. At least someone poor knows their place. Someone with new money is unpredictable, uncontrollable. They haven't learned the rules. Marcus leaned forward, taking her hands. I'm so sorry you felt you had to hide who you really are. I'm not sorry, Elena said. Because it showed me something crucial. You fell in love with me, with who I am, how I think, what I value. Not with what I could provide or what doors I could open. She paused. Do you know how rare that is? Tell me about the others, Marcus said quietly. The ones who failed the test. Elena took a deep breath. Daniel was a corporate lawyer. Charming, ambitious, seemed perfect. We dated for 8 months before he found out about my finances. I made the mistake of using my business credit card at dinner, and he saw the account name. Within a week, he'd proposed with a ring he'd clearly bought months earlier and a prenup his attorney friend had drafted. When I said I needed more time, he couldn't understand why. To him, the money changed everything. Made marriage the obvious next step. And the other one? Trevor. Elena's voice hardened. He was worse. Photographer, artist type, claimed to hate materialism and corporate culture. But the moment he discovered I had money, suddenly he had all these investment opportunities. A gallery opening that just needed funding. A studio space he could run if only someone believed in him. Every conversation became about what we could do with our resources. She looked at Marcus. He couldn't even see it. Genuinely thought he was including me in exciting opportunities, not just using me as a bank. So you decided to hide it completely. I decided to be ordinary, Elena corrected. To see if someone could fall in love with Elena the person, not Elena the portfolio. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know what's crazy? I was falling for you that first day at the community center. You were teaching those kids digital design, and this one teenager was giving you attitude about why he needed to learn software when he could just do everything on his phone. And you didn't get frustrated or condescending. You pulled up his Instagram, showed him how much better his photos could look with proper editing, and suddenly he was engaged. Elena smiled at the memory. Carlos. He's working as a junior designer at an ad agency now. That's when I knew, Marcus continued, that you were someone who saw potential in people. Who took the time to understand what motivated them instead of just dismissing them. I fell in love with your patience, your creativity, your kindness. The fact that you split grocery store wine with me on your balcony just made you more real, not less valuable. And now? Elena asked. Now that you know the truth? Marcus squeezed her hands. Now I'm even more impressed. You built something real. You didn't just inherit money and coast on it. You turned it into something that helps other people build their dreams. That's remarkable. Your family doesn't think so. My family, Marcus said slowly, is going to have to make a choice. They can either accept that I'm serious about you and start treating you with respect, or they can accept that they'll see a lot less of me. 3 days after the disaster at Castellanos, Alina's phone rang with an unknown number. She was in her actual office, a modern space in a converted warehouse that housed Martinez Digital Solutions, reviewing quarterly reports with her CFO when the call came through. She almost didn't answer. Elena Martinez. Miss Martinez, this is Catherine Wellington. A pause. I'm calling to apologize for my behavior the other evening. Elena put the call on speaker and muted herself, looking at her CFO, Janet, who raised her eyebrows with interest. Elena unmuted. Mrs. Wellington, I appreciate you calling. I wonder if we might meet for coffee? There are some things I'd like to discuss in person, if you're willing. Elena checked her calendar, though she knew exactly what her schedule looked like. I have an opening Thursday at 10. There's a cafe near my office. I'll come to you, Catherine interrupted. Just send me the address. After hanging up, Janet laughed. She's coming to your territory? That's practically a surrender. Or a reconnaissance mission, Elena countered. Old money families don't apologize. They regroup and strategize. Thursday morning arrived with autumn rain pattering against the tall windows of Elena's office. She'd deliberately chosen to meet Catherine here rather than in a neutral space. Let her see exactly what Elena had built. Catherine Wellington arrived exactly on time, dressed in Burberry and carrying a designer umbrella. But Elena noticed the subtle signs of stress, slightly more makeup than usual, a tightness around her eyes that suggested several sleepless nights. Thank you for seeing me, Catherine said as Elena's assistant showed her in. Please, sit. Elena gestured to the comfortable chairs by her desk rather than the more formal conference table. Coffee? Tea? Coffee, black, thank you. They sat in silence as Elena's assistant brought 2 cups of freshly brewed coffee. Elena waited. This was Catherine's meeting, let her set the terms. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Catherine finally said. And some research. Research? About you. About your company. Catherine set down her cup. I discovered that you own stake in 17 businesses across 3 states. That you're on the board of 2 tech startups. That you've been featured in Forbes, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal for your innovative investment strategies. She paused. That you graduated top of your class from MIT at 21 and built a multi-million-dollar company before you were 30. You've been thorough. I've been an idiot, Catherine corrected. I spent an entire evening convinced I was protecting my son from a gold digger, when in reality I was insulting a self-made businesswoman who could buy and sell my family's assets several times over. Elena sipped her coffee, saying nothing. The morning after our dinner, I received 3 phone calls, Catherine continued. The first was from Antonio Castellano, politely informing. That evening, Marcus arrived at Elena's apartment, her real apartment, not the modest 1-bedroom he'd been helping her upgrade. This one was a penthouse loft in a converted factory building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river and an open floor plan that spoke of both money and taste. Holy shit, Marcus said as he stepped inside. This is where you actually live? This is where I actually live, Elena confirmed, taking his jacket. The other place is a corporate rental we use for clients visiting from out of town. I've been staying there the past 2 years so you wouldn't accidentally discover my real address. Marcus walked slowly through the space, taking in the details. Original artwork on the walls, not prints, but actual commissioned pieces from local artists. A kitchen with professional-grade appliances. Built-in bookshelves holding a mix of business texts and fiction. A piano by the windows. You play? Badly, Elena admitted, but my aunt insisted I learn. Said music taught patience and precision, skills every entrepreneur needs. Marcus sat at the piano bench, running his fingers over the keys. What else don't I know about you? Elena joined him on the bench. Let's see, I speak 3 languages, English, Spanish from my mother's side, and Italian because I spent a year in Milan after college. I hate expensive restaurants even though I can afford them, I'd rather eat street tacos than truffle anything. I collect vintage watches. She showed him her wrist, where an elegant 1960s timepiece replaced the cheap one she'd worn to dinner. And I'm absolutely terrible at golf, which has been a problem exactly twice during business negotiations. Italian? Marcus asked. Is that how you connected with Antonio? Actually, his mother taught me my best curse words, Elena said with a smile. But yes, speaking the language helped build trust when I first approached him about investing. He was so used to cold, corporate types making offers. I showed up, spoke his mother's dialect, and ate 3 helpings of her cooking while listening to his vision for the restaurant. By the end of the night, we were family. Marcus turned to face her fully. Why me? You could have anyone, successful businessmen who understand your world, people from your same background. Why fall for a finance guy who thought you needed help with your bills? Elena touched his face. Because you saw me, not my potential usefulness or my bank account or what I could do for your career. You saw a woman teaching kids digital design and thought I was worth knowing. You insisted on paying for dinner because you wanted to take care of me, not because you were trying to impress me or establish dominance. She paused. And because when your family attacked me, you were ready to burn every bridge to defend me. That's not something money can buy. My mother came to see you, Marcus said. She told me she did. She apologized. Sort of. Is that enough? Elena considered. It's a start. But Marcus, you need to understand, your family showed me who they are at their core. Your mother might learn to be polite to me, but that doesn't change the fact that she measured my worth by my dress and found me lacking. That's not something that disappears with one apology. So what do? We build our own life, Elena said firmly. We set boundaries with your family. We surround ourselves with people who value substance over status. And we remember that we don't need anyone's permission to be together. Marcus pulled her close. I'm still processing all of this. The money, the businesses, the fact that you've been basically living a double life for 2 years. Are you angry? No, he said slowly. I'm impressed. And a little intimidated. And definitely relieved that I don't have to keep pretending to be cool about paying for everything when my budget was secretly screaming. He laughed. Do you know how many times I almost had to put off trips because I'd overspent trying to be the provider? Elena winced. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair to you. It was a test I'm glad I passed. Marcus looked around the apartment again. So what now? Do we tell everyone the truth? Do I move in here? Do we? We take it slow, Elena interrupted. We get to know each other as we really are, without any pretense. You learn about my work, I learn more about yours. We figure out what we want our future to look like. She paused. And if your family can't accept that, we move forward without them. They're going to try to make amends, Marcus warned. My mother's already planning something. She mentioned wanting to host a dinner where we can start fresh. Hard pass. I figured. Marcus smiled. How about this instead? You host something here. Invite my family to your territory. Show them your world instead of trying to fit into theirs. Elena considered. That's actually not a bad idea. But only if you're ready for them to see how you've been living versus how I've been living. I think my ego can handle it, Marcus said dryly. Besides, after watching you demolish their egos at Castellano's, I'm not too worried about mine. There's something else we need to talk about, Elena said seriously. My wealth comes with complications. Media interest, people wanting access, constant requests for money from distant relatives and old friends. There's a reason I kept it hidden. How bad are we talking? My aunt was profiled in several major publications before she died. I've managed to stay more under the radar, but there are people who know. People who track down my contact information, who show up at my office with investment opportunities, who suddenly remember we went to school together. Elena's voice tightened. After my engagement to Daniel fell apart, I had 3 different tabloid bloggers trying to get the story. One of them dug up my college roommate and offered her money for insights into my personal life. Jesus. It's part of why I volunteer at the community center under my mother's maiden name. Why I kept my business dealings separate from my personal life. She met his eyes. If we go public as a couple, there will be attention. Questions. People analyzing our relationship for signs that you're using me or I'm slumming for fun. Are you ready for that? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I'm not going to pretend that sounds fun. But Elena, I'd rather deal with nosy strangers than hide the woman I love because she's successful. That's not who I want to be. Even if it means people questioning your motives? Calling you a gold digger? Let them. Marcus's voice was firm. Anyone who matters will see the truth. And anyone who judges our relationship based on your bank account isn't someone whose opinion I value anyway. Elena felt something release in her chest, a fear she'd been carrying for longer than she'd realized. Okay, then let's do this properly. No more hiding, no more pretending. You meet my business partners, I meet your real friends, the ones who aren't part of your family's social circle. We build something honest. Starting with dinner here, Marcus agreed. When should we ambush my family with reality? Give it 2 weeks, Elena suggested. Let your mother's apology settle. Let them think they have time to regroup. Then we invite them here and show them exactly who we are. You're kind of scary when you're being strategic, Marcus observed. I'm a businesswoman, Elena said with a smile. Strategy is what I do. They ordered Thai food. Expensive Thai food from the place that delivered to penthouses, not the cheap place Marcus usually suggested. They watched movies on her massive television, curled together on a couch that probably cost more than his car. And they talked, really talked, about their childhoods, their dreams, the people they wanted to become. For the first time in 2 years, Elena didn't have to calculate what version of herself to present. She could just be Elena, successful, ambitious, generous, and completely in love with a man who'd proven he loved her for reasons that had nothing to do with money. It felt like coming home to herself.